this is Mora coming to you from the central Mexican highlands, Villa del Carbon, where it's mid-July and I'm wearing winter clothes because it's that cold here. Seriously, I went to the doctor the other day and I asked him if it's always cold like this here. I thought it was maybe a fluke. He said no, the weather here is the same in November as it is in July. So if you're the kind of person who would avoid heat at any cost, this is the town for you. People always talk about noise in Mexico, and they say if you don't like noise, you better not come to Mexico because there's always some form of noise, from music to firecrackers. That's never really bothered me. Just noise in general doesn't bother me that much until now. It didn't even bother me in the first week that we stayed here, but now in the second week it's starting to get on my nerves just because it's hard to make a video and because my Olive is bothered by it. I hope to think that she's getting used to the loud noises a little bit, but I'm not sure. Vigo, on the other hand, is not fazed by anything. He just rolls with the punches. That guy's amazing. This particular location is hard because it's like a freeway down there next to our apartment. And unlike a freeway, the noise just bounces off the walls and the buildings and comes right up into our window. So we get a lot of loud trucks, loud motorcycle noises and music. And I really like the music part. But the loud backfiring and that sort of thing kind of freaks out my dog. So let's talk about dogs in Mexico. Bringing your dogs to Mexico, living in Mexico with your dogs, and what it's like interacting with Mexican dogs. Let's talk about coming over the border into Mexico with your dogs. My only experience with this is driving. I understand that flying with your dogs into Mexico they're more demanding of documentation, and the airlines of course have their own rules about it. But I had a very easy time coming across the border with my two dogs. I was prepared with documentation about their vaccinations, their flea and tick medications, olive spay certificate, dewormer, microchip documentation, everything I could get my hands on, and nobody cared. I had heard that you need to get a health certificate for your dog. That is outdated information. As of right now, it's not needed. I had heard that you need a crate. You don't need a crate. But don't take my word for it. Things change all the time. Go and see what the official rules are when you're getting ready to come across the border. I had several inspections on my way across. After I crossed the border, my first official inspection, and everybody notices right away that I have two big dogs in the back seat. So they always ask if they're dangerous or they'll bite, and I say no. And then the lady inspected my trunk, which was full of household things and clothes, for a few minutes, and then she let us go. She waved me out. So that was good. I had to go through 2 blockades after that in Sinaloa and Sonora states, and they were weird. I didn't know who they were. There were men dressed in khaki pants and black shirts with no insignias, heavily armed, and most of them covering their faces. They let me pass through after I answered a few questions. And as usual, they always start with, "Are my dogs dangerous?" So I've had a really easy time of it, but like I said, don't take my experience for granted because things change all the time in Mexico. We're lucky to have this big, nice garage all enclosed. As far as bringing your dogs back or your pets back across the border into the United States, I heard recently, very recently, that the CDC has simplified their rules and it's going to be easier than we thought. So that's good news for me and everybody who has pets over the border. So I think it's wise to have all the documentation that you can have about your pets when you come across the border. Keep it current. Obviously keep rabies vaccination current. And then if you are ever asked for anything like that, you know you have it. So that's the best way to go about it. But like I said, I wasn't asked for any documentation so far in my trip, so I'm happy about that. If you do need to see a vet in Mexico, they're very inexpensive compared to the United States. If you've seen my other videos, you may know that Vigo has been to the vet twice since we got to Mexico, but he's doing really well. So thanks everybody who's asked about him. He hasn't had a problem with his skin for a couple months now. First, before I go any further, let me introduce you to my two dogs. I always start my videos by just talking like we're continuing a conversation, But let me give you a real introduction. My girl Olive came to me first. If you'd like to see the special circumstances that she came to me under, you have to go back and look at the videos called Catching Up from, I think, February. But I got Olive from a rescue in Northern California, and they told me she was about 4 years old and her name was Olive. They didn't have that much information about her. They had gotten her from a shelter at Los Baños, California. Olive has gone through some form of abuse in her young life. You can tell because she flinches at everything. If you pick up a broom or a tripod or a stick, she thinks you're going to hit her with it. So she's been abused at some point in her life and she's really scarred by that. So when she first got to my house in Oregon, she was petrified and she was shaking. And we just had a lot of quiet time. And it wasn't until about 3 hours later that I heard her give a heavy sigh and finally lay down and relax. The first time I saw her wag her tail, I just remember I was so happy. It was about 3 days in and I was bringing her something to eat and she wagged just for a moment and I was so thrilled. She's the sweetest girl. And like all German Shepherds, it seems, she's a great watchdog. She alerts to anything unusual in the environment. Olive has a wonderful deep bark. She's not that friendly with strangers, but she will warm up to people. And she doesn't really care about meeting other dogs or not. Very dependent on me emotionally and likes to keep me within eyeshot, which is fine. I told her, you know, Olive, your hard days are over. Now it's gonna be nothing but love for you. And I'm so glad to be able to give that to her, and I give her a lot of reassurance. I got her in October, and in November is when I brought a little puppy home. She looked horrified. It took a while before Vigo worked his way into her heart and into her space. Vigo has no sense of personal space whatsoever. Vigo was 9 weeks when he came home with me, and he had been raised with his mother and his siblings and a family with kids, so he was very well adjusted to people and other dogs. He was the most adorable thing I had ever seen. That's him making noise right now. Vigo, shh, quiet. The family called him Funny Face because his face was different than his siblings and his markings were different than the standard Bernese Mountain Dog markings. But I thought he was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. And so I brought him home at 9 weeks and he was immediately in love with Olive, of course, and tried to work his way into her heart, and eventually she accepted him. Vigo has always been friendly and confident. He has moments of shyness with new people, but for the most part, he's just a bundle of confidence and always friendly. He loves to meet new people and new dogs. He doesn't seem to have an ounce of aggressiveness in him. He's just a bundle of love. He's like a human would be if a human never got hurt in their life. He's totally open-hearted and sweet and affectionate. Like I said, he has no concept of personal space and will lay down right on top of you or rest his cute furry head right on your face. It's the cutest thing and I love him so much. Before I came to live here, I probably came for a dozen vacations here in different parts of the country. Of course, I've met street dogs before in many different countries, but now I think I have a better understanding of them since I've gotten to know a few here in Mexico. What you should know about a lot of street dogs in Mexico is that they are not homeless. Many are kept by people, but are allowed out on the street all or part of the day. This explains why so few of them look undernourished or mangy. I know several dogs here in Villa del Carbon who we pass on walks, who are behind gates and fences, but at other times we see them out in the street. I have found that in general, more people are apprehensive here about the threat of a dog attack before they know a dog than in the States. I think this is because a lot of people here have dogs for protection of their personal property, and dogs like that are not necessarily meant to be nice. Barking and warding off intruders and outsiders is their job. In my experience, not as many people have dogs for companion pets as we do in the US, although it's not uncommon. Probably many dogs act as protectors and pets. Once in a while, I come across a dog or two who really do seem wild. They seem unresponsive to people's overtures and have a wild, unkempt appearance. These might be truly homeless dogs living in the street. Because many dogs are kept for protection and deterrence for intruders, Amiability is not as valued a characteristic. These dogs are allowed and sometimes encouraged to be loud and hostile to people outside of their gate. When these dogs are allowed to roam the streets, they often have a different attitude and are not guarding their territory, so their approachability depends more on their personality. As I walk my dogs here, as I do 3 times a day, we frequently encounter street dogs of one kind or another. I have become very aware of their body language and eye contact during the last few months. Each day lately, every day since we've been here, we've been confronted by groups of dogs out there, street dogs. We've been accosted by a couple and I've had to fend them off. So now, when I see them approaching, I do my own, and they don't have good body language, like, stiff tails and lots of eye contact, like they're threatening, or even slightly threatening. I start doing my own body language, which is, I get like this, and say, back off. And that usually does a trick, unless they're really determined. But this morning I did that and I didn't realize there was people behind me watching me with my dog doing this weird behavior. They probably thought I was an alien doing a weird dance or something, but it's worth it because it usually works to make the dogs go away. Because Vigo is so friendly, aggressively friendly, he wants to meet every dog up close. I used to allow this when we first got here if the other dogs seemed into it. But then Vigo got attacked when we were living in La Manzanilla. It was a German Shepherd, and I remember thinking, he looks tense. And the next thing I knew, he had Vigo on his back and was snarling and biting. It only lasted 10 seconds, and then the dog let Vigo up, and he was between my legs and whimpering. I was screaming bloody murder, and the other dog ran away. Luckily, besides the shock of being attacked, Vigo was not injured. After that, I thought Vigo would have learned some caution around other unknown dogs, but he still likes to run up to dogs and see if they'll play. I have to restrain him. In the rare case when we encounter another young dog who looks like he wants to play, I try to give them a moment to horse around. It would be nice for him to make a friend. Olive plays with him a little, but mostly she's irritated by his puppy play. Well, now that we're ending our time in Villa del Carbon, coincidentally, we've had a couple of more dog incidents on the street. And it's always when I'm with Vigo by himself. So that might tell you that his reaction is excitement and fear, and maybe that attracts them, I don't know. The first time we got accosted by a group of 5 dogs, and we don't go to that part of the neighborhood anymore because of it. They think they're hot shit because they're all together in a pack, and they wouldn't leave us alone, and I had to get out of there. Luckily, nobody actually bit anybody. They were just barking a lot. And the second time, we got accosted this morning, me and Vigo, by this huge boy German Shepherd. And he was really aggressive, but just wanted to sniff at first, and I didn't like it, and neither did Vigo. So Vigo actually snarled for the first time. I've never seen him defend himself before, so that was really cool. The dog kept after us until 2 ladies came to try to take the dog away. And then he got away again and tried to come after us. And the scariest thing about some of these dogs is if I do my own special body language and get in their face and pretend like I'm gonna throw a rock at them, and they still don't even look away from their target, which is Vigo, that's kind of scary because I can't even get their attention and they're really focused. But the ladies did get their shepherd under control and we walked away, so that's good. I'm not sure if people who let their dogs just wander think the dogs should just work it out amongst themselves. Maybe they should, I don't know, but I'm just trying to take a walk with my dog without being attacked. So I'm grateful that they came to get their shepherd, and Vigo's fine. And he's growing up. He's 11 months as of yesterday, so he's getting to be a big boy. Vigo is quite the novelty here in Mexico, especially here in Villa del Carbon. He gets a lot of attention. He's very beautiful. Everybody can see that. And frequently on walks, we have people stop their cars or their motorcycles to ask questions about him and look at him and ask what race he is, which is how they say breed. And I tell them Bernese mountain dog, but I don't know if they understand. He's very beautiful, and I've been asked 2 or 3 times if I want to breed him, and I don't think that's a good idea right now. And there's a man here in Villa del Carbon who has seen us walking out twice and stopped excitedly to ask me if I want to sell Vigo. I try to tell him that Vigo's like a son to me. I would never sell him. And then he says, well, maybe we could breed Vigo and make little Vigos. But I don't think that's a good idea right now. This man is really into it, and I hope he doesn't know where we live because I don't want him to steal Vigo. I'm just kidding. I don't think he'd steal Vigo. But yes, Vigo is very attractive to everybody, and he gets all the attention, and me and Olive don't mind a bit. So having dogs in Mexico is very doable. I've had no problem getting rentals with these two. I do try to protect any upholstery in our rentals with my bed sheets. Even if they stay off the couches, there's fur flying around and it's harder to get off the fabric. Occasionally, an owner will ask me for a bigger cleaning fee for a rental, which I am happy to pay. When it comes to food, Mexico has a variety of dry dog food, some names familiar and some not. It's more expensive than in the States, especially for canned food, which I get them once in a while because they like it. I've been happy to find Costco's in Mexico. I've been feeding them the Kirkland brand dog food from Costco from the beginning, and they do well with that. I add eggs, ground beef, or tuna. I'd like to settle soon for at least a few months and give these guys a break from all the traveling. I really think dogs like a routine and a territory, and every time we move, they have to get used to a new place. But they're the best companions I could ever have. I love them so much, and I don't regret bringing them for a moment. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I hope you and your dog have as good of a time as we're having traveling in Mexico.